Who would be a Wolves fan, eh?
On goes Paul. People might yet win it here for Wolves. Flash in the shot. What a goal!
Hello, one and all. Welcome to the latest Wolves pre-match episode.
Come on, you Gooners!
We've got probably the biggest football fan in the UK at the moment, one of the biggest Arsenal fans in London. I've got Gary Powell with me from the Libertines, DJ, producer, humanitarian, composer, father, just all-round good guy. How's it going, Gary?
And most importantly, Gooner!
He's an absolute gooner, folks. I was surprised
Gooner!
how serious this guy is a gooner. He's got his gooner top there. G-Dog27 on the back. It's an absolute pleasure to get 1/4 of what I class as the greatest UK rock and roll band in history. Some people might say other bands, but as far as I'm concerned,
I might say other bands.
I'm disagreeing with you. You can be modest all you like, Gary, but as far as I'm concerned, no one holds a candle to my boys, the Libertines. How are you? Where are you currently? What have you had for tea tonight? And how are you just in general?
I haven't had tea yet. I kind of got my kids ready for school. This is my studio, so come down and I just go to work and I do everything from here. So I spend the majority of my day in my studio, and that's doing my record label stuff. It's doing whatever else. We're printing off stuff for my missus, blah, blah, blah. I'm literally here all day long. If you look behind me, it's a good thing. That's my drinks cabinet. So I just keep all my drinks down there. So I literally live here. I'm here for like 18 hours a day, and then I'll sleep for the rest. I don't venture into the rest of the house. I just stay here. I literally don't see anybody. All I need is my studio equipment and my booze and work, and I'm happy.
What's in that glass tonight? We had a bit of a conversation off air. I think it's a whiskey. You're still a Jack Daniels fan?
I was a Jack Daniels fan. I was a Jack Daniels fan when I DJ'd a lot, because it was the one time when I used to get really, really nervous, because playing with the Libs and playing drums, basically, you have your armor, which is your drum kit, directly in front of you, and then you have extra armor of the rest of the guys in the band directly in front of you. So it's kind of like you feel like you have a little bit of a safety net, whereas when you DJ, it's pretty much with me for the majority. It's me in front of people playing music that, generally speaking, some of it they don't want to hear. Some of it they really want to hear. My sets are kind of block party sets. I kind of like, because I really do like to DJ. I like to scratch it up and put mixes together and all that type of nonsense. I like to do that, but that doesn't necessarily mean that people are going to be into what you do. Whereas when you come to see a Libertine show or a special show or a Neil Dahl show or whatever, you're into that. You're totally into it. So when you're DJing, it's about winning people over. So I was really, really, I still am to this day. I'm still very, very nervous about every time I go and DJ. So I kind of, not so much now, but I used to drink a lot of whiskey when I DJ'd. I'd go through a DJ set. They'd just give me a bottle of whiskey, a bottle of Jack Daniels, and I'd knock a bottle of Jack Daniels back while I'm DJing. Whether it was an hour set, a 2-hour set, if it's a 2-hour set, it'd be more than that. If it's an hour set, I'll just knock back just one bottle of Jack Daniels, just so I can get through the set, just so I don't have to think about it, and I don't have to worry about it, because it's a nerve-wracking thing putting yourself on the line like that to people's opinions, people's criticisms, and regardless of which, I consider myself, I consider myself a musician, but at best, I'm just an entertainer. That's if you disagree with the fact that if you disagree with the fact that I think I'm a musician, then you can't disagree with the fact that my job is to entertain. So I'm an entertainer, and sometimes it's really, really difficult to actually think about yourself as an entertainer, knowing full well that you're going to receive criticism from people watching you do what you do. So I just used to knock back a couple of bottles of Jack Daniels a night. But to the
One
point,
bad song in a set list, Gary, and your whole credibility is gone, isn't it?
I've done it so many times. I remember one time I did it. It was going so well, and then I think I was in Newcastle, and the promoters, they kind of like came up and they because usually I just kind of like make sure that it's just me on the stage, so I can actually get used to the equipment that's in front of me, because for the majority of the time it's not my equipment. So I want to get used to all of the equipment that's in front of me, so I can do my thing, scratch and put the mixes together, and put all my whatever nonsense together. And it was going really well. And the producers, the promoters, sorry, they were all at the side of the stage, and they were giving thumbs up and stuff, and they were like, "Yeah, this is really cool. This is awesome." And I was knocking back my Jack Daniels as I would, and then they all came onto the stage, and I just kind of like eased into it a little bit, and then just kind of pressed play and just kind of stood there having a little bit of a chat. I was feeling really comfortable, and then this track came into my mind. I think it was by Le Rhythm Digital or something, but so a track that literally nobody knows, and I was like, I gotta play this track because this track is awesome. I love this track. I pressed play and I turned around and started talking. And the promoters, they didn't notice straight away, but like within a few minutes, the dance floor had completely emptied, apart from one drunk girl who was just kind of like stood there, just completely comatose, just floating around the stage. And I was like, oh my God, what the hell have I done? Had to try to win everybody back again. It was kind of embarrassing.
Before we launch into how you came about joining the Libertines and whatnot, 20 years ago yesterday, Arsenal did an absolute demolition job on Wolves, beating Wolves 4-1 at Molineux. Quick couple of goals here.
After 8 minutes. And it was sublimely taken by the Dutchman. It's Colin Cameron to take. With depth. Craddock. Goal! Ghanea!
Absolute demolition by Arsenal that day, but for the Wolves fans watching tonight, great moment for VL Ghanea scoring past Jens Lehmann. 20 years ago, Gary, Libertines were just about to sort of embark on making the money. Releasing of Up the Bracket not long after the self-titled Libertines album. What's your sort of memories from back then, and how did it sort of coincide with your memories of what supporting Arsenal back then?
Actually, that actually is an amazing question, because at that point in time I was living in Angel in Islington, right down Upper Street. And if you literally walk 20 minutes down Upper Street, then make a left, it'll take you around about at that point in time to the old to Highbury. And that's where we used to go and watch our Arsenal play, at Highbury. We were not yet in the Emirates Stadium. The Emirates Stadium was just a glimmer in Arsene Wenger's dreams. But I kind of remember the fact that everything that was happening at that point in time was just happening. There was no real plan. Like when I joined the band, when I met Pete and Carl, when we initially started playing, we were just a three-piece. It was just me, Pete, and Carl. John was in the band, but he left the band to do his A-levels. So me and Pete and Carl, we were in the studio, and we're in a plethora amount of studios, starting at the Islington Arts Factory, which again is just around the corner from the Arsenal. And the first thing that we played together was Horror Show, and Horror Show at that point in time was a completely different track, and they just allowed me to kind of like rearrange and do whatever I wanted with it. And it was just, and it was at that point in time that we kind of like found something that was kind of simpatico. Prior to that, we used to hang out at this pub called Filthy McNasty's, and it was at that point in time that when we actually realized there was kind of like kinetic energy between us, because we kind of liked the same things, we liked the same music, we had the same kind of like historical approach to life. Like, you know, they were outsiders. I'm still kind of an outsider. I don't really hang out with that many people per se. I just don't, because I don't know why, to be honest. I guess I'm kind of one of those geeks that always kind of like, I'd rather sit down with a book, read some absolute nonsense, or create some music, which is a nightmare for my family, because, you know, it can be like 2-3 o'clock in the morning, and if I've got an idea, then I've got to get up and I've got to start doing some stuff. It's just kind of, it's just a constant it's a constant drive of creativity within the house. So it's a little bit kind of crazy. I was actually supposed to go to the Brits party tonight, and my manager at various artists, Dave Bianchi, he sent us a message on Friday saying, "Well, you just come to the Brits party. You never go," and I never go because I'm not really particularly that interested. But then I thought, why don't I just take my missus? We'll just go. It might be kind of fun. But she's just started a new job, and she's just like, I just don't have the time. She's killing herself to get this job done, and it's an amazing job. She's working for Alexander McQueen, and she's just absolutely trying her best to kind of make sure that she doesn't drop any balls whatsoever. And as soon as she said no, I was just like, well, what am I going to do? I'm not going to hang out with people who already have other people to hang out with. I'm not just going to stand there. I'm not going to stand there and hope for people to want to come and talk to me. I'm just going to stay at home, do some cooking, and go back to my studio and write some crappy, weird ass music like I normally do. Play some guitar, play some piano, play some drums. I'm just going to do that because that's kind of like that is my level of comfortability. And
I'm glad that you've chosen a night in with the fan cast over a night at the Brits. I mean, for me, it's a no-brainer. Well done on that. As I mentioned, just 20 years ago, Arsenal and the Libertines were about to sort of storm the UK. Maybe not so much in Europe. You haven't really cracked that for a good few years now. I did see an Instagram post on Carl Barat's Instagram the other day, a signed autograph from Arsene Wenger saying, "I wish your three-quarters of the band great success and thank you for your support." I mean, what does Arsene Wenger sort of mean to you as an Arsenal supporter? Were you glad that he left in the end, or did he overstay his welcome? Or
he did. He never overstayed his welcome, because I got told from a source that I believe to be quite kind of like succinct, that he would have left earlier in his tenure as a manager, but there just wasn't anybody to take over. There just wasn't anybody to take over, and without him shoring up everything that was Arsenal at that point in time. I mean, we have to also kind of remember that with the squad that he had, without buying any premier players, he managed to keep Arsenal within the top four for donkey's years. How he did that, I've got no idea. Our Arsenal fans, for me, are some of the most loyal to a fault fans in the entire world. And they really, I was Instagramming one this morning about the use of Nicolas Pepe as a false nine, and this dude was just like, "Well, he's not a false nine. He's just not. What happens if he fails?" And I'm like, "You're not a coach. You're not a manager, and it's not just about like being able to pick up a phone or play FIFA 22 or whatever. It's not about that. You're dealing with really young personalities, young men and women now who've been told that they're amazing. They're amazing all of the time. And now you have to go and enforce an ideology in them when they already have one enforced on them that is more individually orientated. And that's every manager within the Premier League that we're talking about right now. It's not as simple as can you get the best out of the player. It's about, can you enforce an ideology in that player that they will be able to stick with and grow as a player and an individual throughout their tenure within the club. That's why I like the likes of Pep Guardiola. He's absolutely freaking amazing. What he's been able to do over these years, keep that level of consistency, not dropping off at all, not having players go, "Yeah, we're amazing, we've done it. Yeah, we don't need to work as hard now because we're absolutely amazing." He's not allowed that to happen. That is the problem. That happened. That is the problem. That is what happened with George Graham. George Graham wasn't able to keep that level of consistency because what Arsene Wenger what he took over from was the majority of George Graham's team. He didn't create something completely new. He just took George Graham's team and added a few little pieces to the pod. That's all he did.
That's what's wrong with today's game now, Gary. There's too many people on YouTube doing football podcasts who think they know football. That's the biggest problem in the world right now, Gary. All these YouTube and TikTok football people.
But it all started with Arsenal. It all started with Arsenal, and I think the Arsenal kind of like video, whatever it's called, I think it's become really, really toxic. It's a little bit too toxic. And if you look at it from the point of view of the environment in its entirety, why would you want to come and become involved in a toxic environment?
Yeah, I think Arsenal Football Club themselves sort of, I'm not sure whether there was sort of legal proceedings brought against that channel, because I think Arsenal was saying, I think they made them change their name from Arsenal Fan TV to AFTV because they were saying it was bringing too much sort of negativity towards the club.
Yeah, they did.
Like, so what sort of memories going back to those eras? I mean, I know obviously being in the Libertines in the early noughties, I imagine it's still a bit of a blur to you, but what sort of Arsenal memories stand out for you?
What sort of Arsenal memories stand out for me? God blimey.
Have you had any sort of Arsenal players come to any of your gigs in the past?
Not to my knowledge. I mean, we have had what's his name? Crouchy. Crouchy turned up to a game when he was playing for Liverpool, and he did the robot in amongst the crowd
in the pit.
Yeah, he wasn't in the pit. He was like, he didn't even need to be in the pit. He was right at the back, and everybody could see him because he was so big. And when we were playing, and he did the robot, and we've seen him beforehand at the Enemy Awards and stuff. And he's a nice geezer. He's a pretty good guy. Regarding one of my favorite, just kind of like going on a slight tangent. My eldest son Wolf was really ill a few years ago. He got septicemia, nearly died, and Arsene Wenger sent a fully signed kind of like set of photos of the whole team, and sent a little letter as well as telling Wolf to get better, which was amazing.
It's the little things you remember, isn't it?
It's the little things. It's the little things.
I know it's
not just about the football. I mean, that's not why everybody gets involved in football. That's not why you're here. It's about the fact that it creates community. But unfortunately, we're living in a world right now where community is kind of like fragmented. And because community is fragmented, that then has an adverse effect on football, because we all spend more time in our community than we do in the football community. The football community happens, say for instance, if we're just talking about a Saturday, it's a few hours on a Saturday. It's a few hours on a Saturday where you just get to hang out with your mates and just like kind of like be involved in that community for a period of time. You go to the pub before the game, you go to the game, you go to the pub after the game, and you're just with your mates, and it's just that community. But that community now, because of the outside world, because of the macro world, has become slightly kind of like disenfranchised, which is a damn shame.
Really, you talk about just the little things there. Everyone's not got enough time on their hands now, regardless of what sort of state, work, personal life they're living. So for someone like Arsene Wenger, who probably has a million letters from fans all across the world, or the club are getting 1 billion tweets asking for autographs. Can we do this? Can we do that? For him to take his time out like that's a nice thing. You originally, correct me if I'm wrong, are from the Midlands originally, and I took it upon myself to suggest to you earlier that you named your son Wolf because you had a soft spot for Wolves. Tell me I'm wrong, Gary.
That's right. You're completely right. You were 100% right. No, I didn't because of Wolves, but my family, my mum and dad still live in Brum. So on the other occasion, I find myself back in Handsworth Wood, which is only 12, 15 miles away from Wolverhampton. I remember one of the last times I went to Wolverhampton, I went to see Ben Harper play at the Civic Hall. Other than like being within the Libertines, I mean, I'm just on about just going for the day and just hanging out. And Wolverhampton's a great place. It's beautiful. Like there's kind of, what is it? Is it like there's like a beaches area where there's loads of bars and stuff, and it's I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it's kind of cool.
I think it's definitely been, well, obviously since COVID's taken place, it's definitely been a while since you've been back to Wolverhampton, the Paris of the Midlands, as I like to call it. But hopefully we can get you and the band back there at the new Civic whenever that reopens. I know you played with the Dirty Pretty Things at the Wolfram, which for me is still the best gig I've ever been to in my life. Any memories of that night?
I remember that because my dad, it was his birthday one of the nights there. And my dad came out on stage and the whole audience sang happy birthday to my dad. really loud and resounding. And the only ever time I've heard an audience sing that loudly about anything was when we play the Barrowlands in Glasgow, and because that, that is kind of that audience at the Barrowlands is just another level. But Wolverhampton gave them an absolutely amazing good run for their money. My dad was kind of like really embarrassed. I loved it. I loved the fact that my dad felt all sheepish and was like, "What the hell am I doing here?" It was pretty cool, and I was very much a testament to the Wolverhampton audience.
It's quite a compliment to compare the Wolverhampton sort of gig scene to Glasgow, because that Glasgow bunch they're a rowdy bunch, aren't they? I think that Dirty Pretty Things gig at the Wolfram was the week where the album was released, and I think I ended up on stage that night hiding behind the speakers for about half an hour of that gig, and then as soon as I actually jumped on the stage, you decided to stage dive off.
Well, one of the things that I really remember about that gig as well, I think we played 2 nights there, maybe 1 night, I can't remember. But afterwards, we were driving up to Glasgow straight afterwards, actually, to go to the Barrowlands, funnily enough. But Carl and Dids, they got picked up in cars and they got driven down to London to do Soccer AM, which I found I was really, really annoyed. Well, I wasn't really, really annoyed. It was kind of cool. It was kind of cool. But Carl's an Arsenal fan, but literally knows nothing about Arsenal. Doesn't know anything about Arsenal. He just, he supports them because they're from his hoodie. They're from our area. They're from our ends, and that's who we support because it's not just about the football. It's about the community. I mailed some bloke this morning who was complaining about the decisions that Arteta was making. And I just said, well, what are you going to do? You're not a manager. And you know what? If Arsenal get demoted down to the second tier football, I'm still going to be a fan because this is my hometown. This is my team from here, and I support my team from here. This is and it's more about the community and the fact that when you go to a game, it is really kind of like respective of the entire community. And that's one of the reasons why I love supporting Arsenal, because you look out into the Emirates now. I wish it was hybrid, but you look out into the Emirates now, and it looks like the community. It looks like the entire community. You see everybody there, all shades of color or whatever. That's what you see there. That is Arsenal. I think the only other team that I see that might be like that would be Crystal Palace. I haven't seen.
They have got a big community spirit, Crystal Palace.
I haven't seen anything else like it. And for me, it is about that community spirit, that community coming together. We shouldn't have community coming together at Christmas and New Year's. It should be all year round. Black History Month isn't a month. It's 12 months of the year. We should have community spirit 12 months of the year. Correct.
There's a bit of an unwritten saying that footballers want to be musicians and musicians want to be footballers. Any sort of sentiment with that with you?
I'd be great. No, I'd suck. Funny thing is that my son, both my boys before COVID, they got scouted by Tottenham.
How would that have felt for you, Gary?
They were there. They were there. I had to sign the contracts, and they were at Tottenham.
It's all about their future.
It's what they wanted. It's what they wanted. They
can join Arsenal when they make it big, can't they? They can do all the academy work and then join Arsenal afterwards, like Harry Kane did the opposite way.
Yeah, exactly. Now, luckily enough, COVID happened. Then they took up skateboarding, and now they've just gone back to the local teams, and they're just like, my eldest son kind of summed it up, because I was taking him to his local team, who had, since he was 8 years old, then won the Islington and Camden League every year. They're just ridiculously good. They're just awesome. And then his school team, and then he was at Tottenham as well. So he was doing football virtually every day of the week. He's only just turned 12, and this was before COVID. So between the ages of 8 and 10 years old, he was playing football every day of the week, basically. And it got to that point where he just kind of like lost. He just became so disenfranchised with playing football that he literally said, I don't want football to be my career. And I was like, "You're 10 years old." Oh, okay. I see where you're coming from. Okay. So we, so
Pretty
we,
switched on for a
we
10-year-old. I
yeah,
was just playing the Super Nintendo around that age.
yeah. I was just like, you know, something. If you don't want to do it, then just stop doing it. It's completely fine. It's completely fine.
Is there anyone in the football world that you've come across that you've not been sort of starstruck but felt privileged to meet? There's a picture here with the Libertines and Eric Cantona. I mean, what was that for? Was it Hope for Palestine gig?
That was for that. Yeah, that was for Hope for Palestine. But if you look in Cantona's eyes, I mean, I think you'll find that he's the one that's a little bit more starstruck.
I don't blame him. I mean, Eric Cantona is so 90s.
I was only kidding. He is amazing. I mean, the funny thing was, it's not even funny. For that gig, he came out on stage and recited a poem. And he walked out on stage, and obviously he received kind of like the applause of the audience, and everybody screaming Cantona, Cantona, Cantona. And he literally just put his hands out, and the crowd went silent. Just went deathly silent. Nobody said a word. And then he recited his poem, and then he literally just walked off the stage. And everybody was like, you could feel it was the pent up kind of like emotion in everybody for the fact that this icon was there. And he wasn't just there, he was the delivery of this beautiful poem. I can't remember what it was about, because I spent most of my time literally looking like this. As did everybody. And it was just such a beautiful moment. And then to meet him afterwards was just like, it was pretty amazing. It was pretty amazing. The one person,
was he aware of much of the music?
Yeah. He knew who we were. I think maybe he'd done a little bit of research beforehand. Excuse me. Maybe done a little bit of research, but he knew who we were, and he was more than happy to kind of like come say hi. We hung out for a good few minutes, considering. I mean, he didn't just come in and say hi and then take a photograph. He stayed in the dressing room. We all hung out. We had a good old chat. Peter, being the football mogul, really kind of like took the mic and really tried to kind of like get in there and get as much information out of him as possible, get as much knowledge regarding how much he remembered from what he did about particular games. And obviously, you know, the reason why Arsene Wenger said 3/4 of the Libertines is because Peter is a Queen's Park Rangers fan.
Yeah, someone has to be down there, Gary.
Someone has to be. But he's the one that actually got that signature.
I mean, it's nice for him to do that. You know, obviously, Arsene Wenger is a legend within the football. You mentioned Peter Doherty there, and we mentioned Carl earlier. I found some pictures of a Soccer 6 event featuring these two. Quite old pictures there.
Yeah.
Carl in his Arsenal top and Pete in some sort of QPR themed Soccer 6 shirt. Why is there no pictures of you playing football anywhere, Gary?
I wasn't invited to play.
Unreal.
I'm gonna put it out there exactly like it is. Wasn't invited.
What was your position when you played, Gary, compared to those two?
I'd be a holding midfielder. Yeah.
Like a Gilberto Silva, Patrick Vieira type, or
yeah, kind of, yeah. If you show some skills and get past me, you're gonna regret it.
You'll get past, but you won't get the shot away.
You might even get the shot away, but that'll be the only shot you get away.
How privileged was it to play a part with sponsoring Margate with the Libertines? How did that come about?
I think that came about because of Peter's manager, Jai. I think he was the one that actually instigated that. And that's actually pretty cool. I mean, unfortunately, due to whatever circumstances that were around at that particular point in time, I haven't actually had a chance to go down there yet. But I've been in contact and been in conversation with the guys regarding how it was all set up and stuff. And it was actually pretty cool. It was actually pretty cool. I mean, you know, we'd think that there'd be a lot of like more of a business acumen regarding how it was actually set up, and then like, you know, the tenor of a period of time that you know it would be set up for, but it was basically set up for on the basis of a like. That's all it was set up for. It was just set up on the basis of a like, and and the fact that we were in Margate at that particular point in time, trying to do something that is, I should say, very community orientated. I mean, we have the hotel and we have the studio down there as well, and it is a business venture, but it is also kind of like a viable and part of the Margate community, and hopefully it is going to be one of the things that kind of like transcends the dynamic that actually is the perception what is Margate right now. Margate has this perception of being very kind of Brexit, Farage led, kind of like is a very, very kind of like very poor but right wing led kind of like enclave, and it's kind of not that at all. It's very, very community orientated, and I think unfortunately it's been kind of like it's one of those places that's been kind of like left behind and derided by society. Just like the likes of Blackpool and Scarborough and so forth, that were kind of like bastions of British kind of like seaside and tourism culture. But as soon as people kind of like found, I don't know, Magaluf, why the hell would you go to Margate? Where in actuality, it is very kind of like, it's a very poignant, beautiful part of British culture and landscape that people should kind of like really try to investigate more, because it's not, at the end of the day, it's not just about catching as much sun as possible. It is about kind of like investing yourself in what is British culture. And the more you can actually invest yourself in the entirety of what is British culture, then the more you have more of an understanding of everything that is around you.
Shoreditch by the Sea?
No.
No, I thought that's what I was told.
No. That is the biggest amount of bullshit that I've ever heard in my entire life. I used to live in Dalston in Hackney, and I remember when I moved out of there to live in Highbury, and I remember being back in bed to meet some mates, going out for a drink, and I walked past some kids who I heard them say that they were really, really happy and cool to be in D-Town. Now, this is where I got mugged in Dalston twice. I remember coming back off tour with Dirty Pretty Things once, and I literally got into a vehicle from Heathrow Airport and went home, and I found there was a bunch of police cars around my house because I'd been away for so long. The drug dealers were using my bins as a drop-off point. And I literally came home from tour, and there was a CID there, there was a Met there, there was everybody there. I thought I was fucked. I thought I was screwed. But luckily they were just like, we know this ain't got nothing to do here. We know whom the corporates are. We're just kind of like here doing a follow-up kind of nonsense. But that was the day that I came home. So for some cool, young, little hip university kids to call Dalston D-Town, which I just knew was just kind of like my ends, that was just kind of like dodgy as fuck, was a little bit kind of like weird. But, gentrification, baby. That's what happens.
Considering the tabloid history of the Libertines, baby shambles, whatever, how the Sun didn't pick up on that story, we'll never know.
The Sun didn't care about me right then, because at that particular point in time, Peter was going to court literally every other week.
That's what I was getting at. I'm sure that I'm surprised the Sun didn't pin that one on Peter, to be honest.
Yeah, well, this is part of my problem that I have with the rock and roll industry, which I think the pop industry is kind of, albeit, don't get me wrong, there is some great pop music, but the industry itself has kind of got it right. Because regardless of whom you are within the industry, you will get applauded for your efforts. And within the pop industry, if you've made an effort to improve or create something, the pop industry will applaud you. Rock and roll still looks at things from the likes of the lead singer, the lead guitarist. Anybody else, we don't really care about. I mean, I'm surprised when John Entwistle died that it made the press, even though it made the press for all the right reasons.
One of the most underrated bass players in the history of music. You can try and be modest on that one, but I'm not going to allow you to. He's literally good, isn't he?
Are you kidding me? He was awesome. John Entwistle.
Which,
Oh
look
my
what you're saying,
goodness.
base players never get the credit, do they?
No, they don't. No, they don't.
Right, I'm going to bring on another Arsenal fan to sort of double team me at the moment. 90minute.com's Harry Symeou. How you doing, Harry?
Hey guys, how you doing?
How you doing, Harry? You right?
All good. Nice to meet you, Gary.
Nice to meet you, Harry.
Love it. Love it.
I'll just come to Gary first. Gary, what's your sort of opinions on Arsenal and the way the club are faring at the moment? What's your opinions on Mikel Arteta?
I have no problems with him at this moment in time. I think what he's doing is trying to enforce an ideology. No, don't get me wrong. I'm not one of these guys that is kind of like what's the phrase? Respect the process. I don't care about this respect the process phrase. That's just like a soundbite as far as I'm concerned. But I do respect the fact that there has been an effort made to change what has been kind of like an historical approach to how we kind of play football and how we approach the Arsenal foundation as it is within its entirety. Within the Arsene Wenger years, it worked amazingly, even when people were saying we weren't doing great, but we were still finishing in the top four. He didn't have the money to buy any great players because he spent all of his money building the stadium, and it firmed up the finances. We were in an extremely lucky place to be in, and we were making the Champions League every year, which meant we got that extra bonus of being in the Champions League, which at that point in time, if you're looking at it purely from a fiscal point of view, was kind of amazing. It kept us buoyant, it kept us going, it kept us being one of the big six within the United Kingdom in the Premier League. It was amazing, and I think because of the advent of social media, and everything that Arsenal TV has done, I think it has solid the kind of name to a degree. I mean, I'm not going to say that it's completely 100% negative. There is a massive love for Arsenal within that kind of framework, but unfortunately, I think it's kind of it spouts a certain amount of negativity that isn't actually needed. I mean, look how long it took Liverpool to make it back to where they were now. It took them at least 10 years to get back to where they are now. Manchester City, even longer. We look at Manchester City now, we say we want to be like Manchester City, but they were, excuse my terminology, shit for absolutely donkey's ears. They were shit for longer than they've been great. They were. Simples. They were. We are talking about the possibility of it being 4-5 years. That's absolutely nothing within the framework of re-establishing what is now the new trail of what will be Arsenal.
Harry's just got serious. The glasses are on for the non-YouTube viewers here. What did you make to the lack of recruitment in the window, Harry? I know for myself, being a Wolves fan, our window wasn't great. We let Adama Traore go to Barcelona for what on paper seems free for 6 months with an option to buy, which it must be some sort of financial reasoning, which they'll have to end up paying 30 million, which is the option fee. What was your opinions on Traore going to Barcelona and Arsenal's window?
Traore going to Barcelona surprised me. I thought he was headed for Spurs. I'm glad he didn't go there because I think he's a player that's got plenty to offer.
Yeah,
I think he's one of those players that he just makes things happen. And I know there's question marks over his end product, and we hear that a lot. When he gets into the positions, does he deliver the right type of cross? Does he pick out his man? I get all of that, but I think that he's somebody that's got such incredible physical attributes that he's really difficult to deal with whoever he comes up against. So for him going to Barcelona, I was surprised. I watched him play for Barcelona at the weekend against Atletico Madrid, and he had an instant impact. So, happy for him to do well, considering he's not at Spurs. But in terms of Arsenal's window, I've got mixed feelings on this, Dan, because initially, when the window slammed shut, I was sitting there thinking, well, this is really frustrating. Arsenal have had an opportunity here to add to the squad, improve the squad, and potentially enhance our chances of finishing in the top four. But then when I think about it with a kind of calmer mindset and I look at what is the bigger picture at Arsenal, which I think is clearly a rebuild, it's a strip back of a really overloaded squad of players who weren't good enough, who cost a lot of money, who were on big wages, which is largely why we couldn't get rid of them for so long, because nobody would take on those contracts. I think this is what needed to happen. And I'm actually glad that we didn't go and blow a crazy amount of money on somebody that we weren't totally sure on, because that exact approach is why we are where we are now. And it's why we dropped out of the top 6, because we spent vast amounts of money on people that just weren't good enough. And look, Arsenal tried. They tried to sign Dusan Vlahovic. He was the man that they wanted. They couldn't make it happen. He had his heart set on Juventus. Then the opportunity came along to have talks with Real Sociedad about Alexander Isak. And there was a release clause, £75 million, but Arsenal didn't feel he was worth that. And I'm glad Arsenal stood their ground and didn't throw an extra 25 odd million at somebody just because the fans wanted to sign in. So I think that there is a plan. There is a process. I know people hate that term, but there is a process. And for me, I think what we saw in this window is Arsenal not panic and abandon the process, but instead stick to the original plan and hope that we can cope for the remainder of the season. It's a bit of a gamble, but I think it's a calculated gamble. And I think if we can have a big window again in the summer, we'll look back on this window and say it was probably the right thing.
Can I interject really quickly?
Go quickly.
Because I love that. That was awesome. Those were wise words. One quick question, Harry.
Go ahead, mate.
What do you think about the prospect of Pepe being a false 9?
I think it's something that I wouldn't mind seeing. I think that Nicolas Pepe's really good in front of goal. I think when he gets around the penalty area, his unpredictability and the fact that he can cut in on that left foot of his and produce wonderful finishes is obviously great, and it's something I'd like to see. My only issue with that is I think in Mikel Arteta's team and in his system, he has a very specific role for the number 9. And I think that role requires discipline. I think that's why Lacazette plays it better than Aubameyang, because he drops into those deeper positions and he creates space for others. Nicolas Pepe, for me, in my view, to get the best out of him, he needs to have freedom. And I don't know if he'll get the structural freedom that he needs playing in that centre-forward role. So that's the thing that puts me off it.
That I agree with that. And the fact that he doesn't have a right foot, but may.
Bringing in someone now, former Wolves, Arsenal, and unfortunately for you two guys, former Tottenham playmaker, all-round good guy, Rohan Ricketts. What was your sort of opinions on what you just heard there, Nicolas Pepe as a false 9, and what was your thoughts on the whole Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang situation in January?
So for me, good afternoon. It's good evening. Good afternoon from over here. Good evening,
good evening,
guys. How you
doing?
Hey, mate.
I'm good. Yeah, over here it's what we at now, 2:50 in the afternoon in Toronto.
Where you at?
I'm in Toronto, Canada.
Oh, whereabouts? My brother lives in Toronto. Well, he lives in Scarborough.
Oh yeah, I'm in Mississauga.
Oh, my aunt and uncle used to live in Mississauga. They used to live in Malton.
Yeah. I'm about probably 15 minutes from there.
Yeah. All right, cool. I know it well.
Nice. How many times you been over here?
No, I haven't been back since about 91, 92, because my aunt and uncle, they moved to Atlanta.
Okay, cool. So for me, going on first about the Banningham situation, that was a big surprise for me to see him go for free. That was horrendous for me. Business by Arsenal. A player of that magnitude, someone that they was paying. What was he on? 300, 350?
Yeah, he's on 350. But in saying that, they are saving 25 million a year in salary.
I think it was purely just to avoid another Ozil situation, wasn't it?
Yeah, which is good, but surely they were seeing this coming a long time ago, and they could have got something for him. But that happens. And then the other thing you was talking about, which was Pepe. So for me, Pepe, good football player, and the way that Arteta sets his team up, if he can give them the right direction and give someone like Pepe that freedom, I think he could definitely be effective in that role. He's got the ability in a 1v1. He draws people in. I think he can see a pass. I don't think he'll be a bad little option for the false 9.
I'm just going to drag it back, guys, because obviously Wolves, in my opinion, are a bigger club than your side's North London Red. Or I can't remember what they were called on Pro Evolution.
Dan, you've been drinking on the job, mate.
Yeah.
Me and Gary, Gary's on the whiskey. I'm on the liqueur tonight, Harry. It's Tuesday night. Tuesday night's Thursday night.
Yeah, Tuesday night's a new Thursday.
Right, Thursday night on BT Sports is Wolves versus Arsenal, Premier League head-to-head. We've played each other 14 times. Wolves have won 3, winning the last 2 consecutively, which was the first time we did the league double over Arsenal since 1978-79. I don't think me, you, and Rohan were actually born, and Gary was just a little pup, I think. What's your sort of thoughts on that predicted Wolves lineup there? Is there anyone that sort of gives you concern, Harry?
Yeah, there's a few players there. I like Daniel Podence. I'm a massive fan of his. So obviously I'm from a Greek background, so I saw a lot of him at Olympiacos, and I also saw a lot of Jose Sarr as well. So they're players that I'm not surprised have come to the Premier League and had an impact. The midfield is really strong. Neves and Moutinho, I think they've proven that they can do the physical side of the game and cope with the pace of the Premier League, but also have incredible technical ability. Jimenez is obviously a threat as well. I like Symeou at times. At times, I've not been overly impressed. I think Ait Nouri's coming on well. So I think that's a really, really good side. And I've been massively impressed with Wolves this season, by the way.
I think we've taken a lot of people by surprise this season. A lot of our own fan base, to a degree, losing Nuno in the summer. I think we had when you were on last time, Rowan. I think we were a bit concerned about how Wolves were going to fare this season with the managerial change, the sort of culture change after Nuno had left. Wolves got Raul Jimenez back. What are your thoughts on the way that Wolves have played this season?
I thought they've played very well, and I think that the club has probably learned, and not a lot of clubs do this because they usually jump from manager to manager. But I think that the club have learned and seen that the blocks that the previous manager left are stuff that they should build upon, as opposed to just keep changing it. They've spent a lot of money on players over the last few years to maintain their position in the Premier League. And I think they found the right guy that can come in and follow what the previous coach has done. And they're doing really, really well. It's nice to see them sitting in a good, healthy position. Like, people need to be honest and say, like, Wolves, as much as they've done well over the last 2-3 seasons, if Wolves, I think, finished, if they stay in the Premier League, I think when you look at the last 15 years, that's seen as successful. So to see them sit in, I think, what are they in, like 7th, 8th?
Yeah.
I think that's really good. But still a long way to go,
There is still a long way to go. Without sort of putting the fear into Harry, do you see us as a rival for that top 4 place or not?
I don't mean this.
Whose is that top 4 place at the moment for you, Harry? Because I don't think there's anyone really trying to put a marker down on that 4th place.
Yeah, I think it's quite open, but I think the favourites for me are still Manchester United. I still think that they've got the quality in the squad, and I know they've not been great under Ralf Rangnick, but I think there are signs that their performances are starting to get a little bit better. We saw them against Middlesbrough in the FA Cup the other night, and they were beaten, but it was a game that they really dominated. It was a game they had the chances to win, and I thought, I don't want to say this as an Arsenal fan, but I thought they were robbed in the goal that they conceded as well. So I feel like Man United will get there. Tottenham obviously have the Conte factor as well, which has improved them dramatically.
Yeah.
So I think it's quite open, but I don't think Wolves are in there for the top 4. And that's not meant disrespectfully. I think that for Wolves to finish in the top 6, top 7, top 8 would still be a really great season. And we shouldn't lose sight of that. But I just think it's any one of Spurs, Man United and Arsenal. I still make United the favourites though.
What's your opinions on that 4th place, Gary? I just want to make a quick comment. I think Man United as a club are finished because even the refs have turned against them now after that handball against Middlesbrough. Who's finishing 4th for you this season, Gary?
Unfortunately, I think it's Tottenham. Unfortunately, I think it's Tottenham. I think if we're lucky, we'll come in 6th. But I think it's Tottenham, and I think a lot of that is as you mentioned beforehand, it is that Conte kind of like factor that he's been there before, and he understands the Premier League. I think the finances at Tottenham are a little bit more assured than they are at Arsenal, obviously because they've actually had, albeit a mediocre transfer window, but they've had a transfer window, whereas with us, we haven't actually had any. So for us, it's more of a case of 2 steps forward and 1 step back. And that 1 step back, I think it just might be just a little bit too much for us to get into the top 4. But regarding that, for me, it's not about whether we make it into the top 4 right now. It's about whether we actually get ourselves into a position of actually getting that consistency so that when we move forward, we are where we're supposed to be. And I don't think we're there just yet. I think we need to do just a little bit more in the transfer window. I think there needs to be a little bit more kind of like patience regarding everybody and what the manager is actually trying to accomplish. And I think once that happens, it'll be fine. I mean, we have to remember that I bring back the Pep Guardiola thing. There was a few years ago when Pep Guardiola finished 3rd and made it into the Champions League, and people were talking about the fact that if he doesn't do any better, he's going to be gone from Manchester City. It took him a good few years, a good 2 or 3 years for him to actually make his mark within the Premier League. Alex Ferguson was even longer, and then he was able to create a dynasty. We just need to kind of like hold back on this whole ideology of getting what we want as soon as we can have it. Good things come to those who wait, and if you work for it, you can have whatever the heck you want. We just need to be able to make sure that everybody's on the same page, basically.
Are you envisaging a dynasty under Mikel Arteta, Rohan?
Say that again, mate.
Are you envisaging a dynasty under Mikel Arteta for Arsenal?
Yes and no. I think for that 4th spot, he thinks Spurs are going to have it. I think it's a coin toss between Arsenal and Spurs. I think Conte does have an impact on what's going to happen in the run-in. But I still feel that Arsenal now, without, like, people sometimes forget, when a big player like Aubameyang leaves, that also gives players in there the feeling of belonging more or being the man. So I think we're going to see players now step up, could be the likes of Pepe, Lacazette there, and step up and really come to the front of things. And I think it'll be between Arsenal and Spurs for that 4th spot.
Looking at Arsenal's squad in regards to the fixture on Thursday, how are you seeing that? Are you seeing Arsenal line up, Harry, in regards to coming up against Wolves away at Molineux under the lights? You've got similar depth to Wolves, really. You've got a good sort of starting 11, but the depth after that isn't great, is it?
No, it's not. And obviously that's one of the big concerns for Arsenal at the moment. I think it will be Ramsdale in goal. I'm expecting it to be Tierney, Gabriel, and White. The big question mark in this Arsenal side is who plays at right back. Doesn't look like Tomiyasu's going to be available. He's not been involved in any of the training footage or images that we've seen over the last few days and weeks. So I think he's a big doubt. The question is, does Mikel Arteta bring Rob Holding into the heart of the defense and move Ben White out to right back? Or does he just bring Cedric in? If I had to guess, I think he's going to put Cedric in at right back. I think it'll be Xhaka and Partey in the midfield with Odegaard just in front of them. And then I think the front 3 at the moment has to stay the way it is. There's an argument that Emile Smith-Rowe deserves to come back into the side. Obviously, he's our top scorer this season, so there's a big kind of case for him to come in. But I don't think you can drop Martinelli. I don't think you can drop Saka. And I just think Lacazette in his skill set is unique to everything else we have up top. So I think he plays as well.
What's your opinions going into the game on Thursday, Rowan? Obviously, it's, like I mentioned, it's quite a big game in the top half, chasing those European places. How do you see it actually going from a tactical point of view?
I think Wolves are going to try to stamp their foot on the game in terms of possession. They're playing at home. They know that Arsenal is a team that they are best now when they're in possession. So if they can keep the ball away from Arsenal, so it won't allow Arsenal to build a bit of a rhythm, but also press them very high when they have it. If Wolves can do that at home, I think they've got a really good chance of winning the game. But it's It's that patience to keep the ball away from them. Because when you're playing, when a team that likes to keep the ball plays against another team that likes to keep the ball, it's a real battle. It's a fine line of patience when they're going to probe, when they're going to go. And if they can find that balance and maintain possession, that will frustrate Arsenal. We're not used to playing without the ball unless they're playing against the big boys like City and Liverpool and Chelsea. So that's what they're going to have to do to win the game. But Arsenal, on the other end, they've got to go in. When you're going into someone else's house, you go into their backyard, you've got to go in there immediately and ruffle feathers. Immediately. So it's going to be interesting. I think having people like Partey in midfield, Xhaka there, maybe I wouldn't be surprised if they went with maybe and Nenny, because it's going to be important to win that midfield battle to maintain possession. It's not going to be easy game for Arsenal.
Any sort of feelings from you, Gary, into this game? Obviously, I've just mentioned chasing those European places, Arsenal away from home.
I completely agree with Rohan regarding his perspective on what the game will be. I think it's going to be extremely difficult for Arsenal because, as mentioned beforehand, if we don't maintain a great deal of possession, especially with teams that aren't like your Man Cities, your Man Uniteds, your Liverpools, we kind of like, it's almost as if we lose interest in the game, which is kind of weird. And I think that, like, under the tutelage that Wolverhampton of the Wolves have had, I think there's gonna be a heavy kind of like percentage of them trying to maintain possession of the ball. So then for us, it's going to be a little bit more of, do we stick to the plan that Arteta will have in front of us? I mean, I'm hoping that Tomiyasu will actually play. I'm hoping he will do. I think he just helps firm up the back a little bit more than the likes of Cedric Suarez would do. But I can actually envisage Suarez playing as opposed to Tomiyasu because he's been out for too long.
I'm actually heartbroken that Adama Traore has gone to Barcelona, because Adama coming up against Cedric Suarez would have just been...
Yeah, it would have been, yeah.
I mean, I think I could give Cedric Suarez a run for his money now. I think we're both coming towards the end of our careers. Game week 24 in the Premier League has started. Obviously, Newcastle, Everton, West Ham, Watford, Burnley, Man United have all kicked off. Any sort of fixtures that stand out for you there, Rohan, we should be looking at apart from Wolves and Arsenal?
In terms of entertainment or...
Anything, you tell me, and we'll see if we agree.
So, I don't care if you don't agree, first thing.
Right. Remove.
So Man City, Brentford, the good game to watch, just in terms of obviously entertainment. I think Brentford's going to go there. They may be a bit fearless. Villa at home to Leeds, entertaining. Stevie G and one of my mentors, Michael Beale, putting their footprint onto that squad. So going up against a team who play very, they have a very unique style, Leeds, right? It's kind of like hit or miss style, but it'll be interesting to see how they handle that. Obviously, Liverpool, Leicester, Brendan Rodgers going back to his old stomping ground to Anfield, so that'll be a good game to watch. They're still missing. I think they can still be missing Salah and Mane will be missing still, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and also an interesting game to watch, just because they lost the other day, would be the Burnley game and the Man United game. It's not easy for anyone after losing the game, but for the likes of Manchester United, they're going to have huge pressure to go there and win the game. So going there and drawing that game, I don't think it's an option. And there'll be a lot of pressure on the manager after such a bad result the other day against Borough.
If you were going to have a friendly bet on Wednesdays and Thursdays fixtures, Harry, pick 3 teams that are going to get a win.
I'm going to go Man City as 1, Tottenham 2, and I fancy Aston Villa at home to Leeds. I think Leeds will go there and try and play them, and that could be a problem. They leave themselves exposed.
What's your actual score prediction for our game on Thursday, Harry?
Score prediction, I'm going to go with a 1-0 to the Arsenal. Come on, you Gunners.
1-0 to the Arsenal.
What was that, Rowan?
Old school is a 1-0 to the Arsenal. A real old school shout.
That's it.
What about you, Rowan? What's your score prediction for Wolves Arsenal?
Wolves Arsenal, I'm going to go 2-2.
2-2. Gary?
2-0 to the Ars.
2-0 to the Arsenal. I'm going to go with a classic 2022-23 season, 1-0 to the Wolves. Clean sheet. Jose Sarr, Max Kilman, shoring everything up at the back. And hopefully we'll be doing a podcast on Friday night with a podcast to review the win. Gary, you guys are going out on tour. I say you guys, you mean more bands than nurses in the NHS. Dirty Pretty Things, Libertines, you're on tour March, April, May, the rest of the year. There's still tickets out there. I'm keen on going to the ballroom for Dirty Pretty Things, and Libertines are at Manchester, Cardiff, Hatfield, and Edinburgh later on in the year. Looking forward to that. Any new music due out anytime soon?
Well, before you save it, I might have to kind of like I'm not even sure I'm actually allowed to save this, but the March 24th gig has been double booked because I'm not going to be here. I'm going to be in South America.
Whereabouts?
I'm going to be in Colombia, in Bogota.
Wow, that's where my wife's from, Colombia.
Oh wow!
What are you going to be doing over there?
I've got a gig. I've got a gig in Bogota, and yeah.
This is like a This Is Your Life episode with these two, isn't it, Harry?
Yeah, exactly. they're too famous for us, Dan, man. We're just normal guys.
Yeah, so I'm sure I'm not actually should have said anything, but what the hell? What are they going to do?
Fantastic exclusive, Dirty Pretty Things. Libertine Sport. Any new music?
Yeah, we're working on it. Right now, we've just like our booking agents have just booked so many shows. It's like, when are we actually going to be able to get into the studio to record it all? So I think for the majority, I go back out on the road with the boys in a couple of weeks' time. I'm just going to take a bunch of my own recording gear and just record as much as we can do on the road, and we'll just see what we can do. What's
the latest with you, Rohan, and the Rohan Ricketts Academy?
So I've been working on a high performance program at the moment, which is going to launch in September. So it's a program where children will come to me at the facility 8:30 in the morning. We'll do a bit of meditation, and then we'll go on the pitch and work on some stuff, like a lot of individual stuff. Then we'll bring them together and do some collective stuff. So it's that half day, so 12 p.m. they got to go to school. Then they got 3.5 hours of school. So it's a new project for myself, something I'm very excited about. I've had a great response from the parents and the children, and I can't wait to get going. And then the other thing I'm doing at the moment, and some players are leaving this week. So I'm doing some exposure camps in England. So I've got children from here, elite children from here, flying over to England, and they're going to be training with academy coaches in England and academy players. So it's going to allow them to kind of be seen by coaches, but it's not a trial, but it's going to allow them to be seen by certain coaches, be assessed by them while playing against other signed players in England. And the people that are going over, actually, they're actually going to go and watch the Wolves-Wolves game. So they're going to get a chance to go and watch the two clubs where their coach played. So that they're flying in 3 days.
What a privilege for those kids, Rowan, seeing the likes of João Moutinho, Ruben Neves, and that Harry Kane, who was a bit all right for Tottenham. Harry, Chronicles of a Gooner, Athletic Greens, tell us all about it.
Yeah, Chronicles of a Gooner podcast, available on all major podcast stores and, of course, on YouTube. Part of the 90 Min Network, just like yourselves. So doing lots of great work, lots of great content, keeping it ticking over, and obviously trying to keep up with the drama that is Arsenal, which is pretty much takes up all our time, I guess.
Not surprised.
We mentioned just before you came on, Harry, that the one of the biggest problems in football nowadays is YouTubers and people on Twitter who think they know football.
I agree.
We'll be back after the Wolves Arsenal game this week with a podcast to review, hopefully a Wolves win. Playing us out this week on the show is Wolverhampton-based band Rosa Kalen with Kill the King. We'll see you soon. Thanks for coming on, guys. Take care.
Take care, pal.